The candidates are now prepared to make their opening statements, which will include responses to the questions they have. And we're going to start with Bob Fine.
That was quicker than I thought. Well, I think it's appropriate, at least at this forum. I think this is the first one I get to be number one. Sometimes I'm at the other end. And it's because I'm sort of excited about this because of, not just because I've been interested in urban farming since I was a little kid, but I own chickens. And I have 4 hens in my backyard, and I don't think I'll ever let them go. We've got, are we supposed to have like 3.5 minutes?
3.5 minutes from the first words you uttered.
Okay, and I know I'm already on that, but I'm not worried about it. And we respond to all 4 questions.
All 4 questions in the opening statement, and our timekeeper is right in front of you.
Right.
And she will keep.
And she already weighed
honest.
1 minute, so I've already lost 2.5 minutes. Okay, for those of you who don't know, Bob Fine, people know me because I've been on the park board. And I like to think that we're the agency that's closest to urban farming just because we have all this parkland in the city, but that's not exactly true, of course, as you know, because we offer a lot of other things. I've been coaching kids for 39 straight seasons. I still do it. So I'm out there all the time, and I'm a real estate attorney. I've been involved in real estate business. Real estate it has been my background for a long, long time. And I've been on a lot of other things. I've been on the Civil Rights Commission for 18 years and the longest serving commissioner in the history of the city. I've been on the zoning board for 2 years because it falls in with sort of my real estate background. And I'm running and leaving the park board. I'm not running for re-election because I want to change things. I want to change the way the city works. But I'm going to get more into farming because you can read all about the rest of it on my website. And I've been sort of active myself in gardening, but really vegetables. My wife does the flowers, I do the vegetables. So I've got the backyard, I can do whatever I want with it, and I've been into it since I can't remember what age, but I used to be in the gardening club in elementary school, and I was really proud of that. And I've been growing tomatoes since I was in elementary school, and I haven't stopped, and I got all sorts of other things. And I eventually graduated into this interest in chickens, and now I have 4 hens, and I can't live without them. But what I really want to tell you about is, that I feel that I'm the kind of person, because I've been there, both in gardening and now with chickens, that I want to ease up regulations and make it a lot easier to do. I want regulations that are really interested in public health and safety, though. So I want to do that. I am very interested in local products. That's my game. I'm there. I have it with eggs. I got it with vegetables. That's the way I'd rather do it. And I have ideas about trying to find lots around the city and having gardening, and even potentially open something up that people might be able to have chickens someplace. I'm not sure how that would work, but I'm thinking about that. And there's an awful lot of things I would like to do, and I just got the stop sign.
Thank you very much. Dan Cohen.
My name is Dan Cohen. I'm an independent candidate for mayor and about as much a novice in farming as anybody could possibly be. But one of the great things about being a candidate for mayor is that it can be a learning experience and not just a preaching experience. So I've tried to do what I could from the outset here to do a little research and learn a little bit about what your situation is all about and what a mayor can do to help you make a success of urban farming. I can quote statistics that I've learned, that there are 1,847 vacant lots that can be farmed. I've learned about composting, that we need more of it because it's much better to compost than to burn up nutrients in a burner. I've learned about youth programs. I've learned about Bertrand Weber. I've learned how urban farms soak up rainwater instead of flooding sewers. I've learned about licensing and that the state constitution does not require licensing for agriculture, and there's no reason why the city can usurp or supersede the laws of the state constitution. I've learned how we're teaching kids about farming in the schools, and that farming represents not just a farm in and of itself, but it represents jobs, community, health, environment, and these are all important values. And if we hold these values, and I think most of us, all of us do, then we should work to advance these values, and that's what farming does. This is just the beginning of a learning process for me. I hope to make some contribution tonight to what we're going to be talking about, but I've got a long way to go. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jackie Cherry Holmes.
Thank you. I'm Jackie Cherry Holmes. I'm really pleased to be here this evening because this is a topic I care deeply about. I've been a community organizer, I've been the city council president, I've been a private business owner, but I want to be the mayor that leads in the area of food policy. It's something I come to deeply committed to. A little bit about me. I was buying from a CSA years ago before anybody talked about them. I'm the daughter of a beekeeper. My dad kept bees for a very, very long time before he passed. My dad was a master gardener in Minneapolis, one of the most instrumental people in starting community gardens throughout our city, and he was the first guy to do blooming boulevards in Minneapolis. So I come at this with a passion for the topic, and I care deeply about food policy. And I believe that, we talk a lot about how can Minneapolis set itself apart? What is our brand? What are we going to be in the future, and what are we known for? And I think one of the things we can set ourselves apart by is by being a leader in urban farming and gardening. Because urban farming contributes to our community, to our economy, it's healthy, it's good for our environment, and it provides food for people. And quite frankly, one of the very little known things that we don't talk about much in Minneapolis is we have a lot of people in our communities who suffer from lack of food, lack of access to food, and fear of not having enough food for their next meal. That's unconscionable. We should be able to feed the people in our city, and urban gardening and urban farming, I should say, can help us do that. A strong, vibrant farming economy can provide fresh foods for our underserved communities. It serves as a community building tool, and it teaches our young people about food policy. And in the next 5 years, I want to be a strong, strong partner with the urban farming community. I want to break down the red tape, and I'm going to take a line from Cam Winton, who you're going to hear from in a few minutes. But one of the places, actually, that the rules and the regulations are the worst are around urban farming policy. We've got so much red tape, we got so many rules, we need to break those down so we make it accessible and we make food accessible to people and the process much easier. I'll be working with you on that. Want to figure out how we free up these lots and get water to the lots. When I was the council president, I worked very, very hard to free up the lots. Not every lot in this city needs to have a house built on it. A lot of them can be used for community gardening and should be used for community gardening because that is an important technique and tool for building community. I want to be part of that. I'm absolutely committed to a process by which our procurement at the city is more oriented around procuring locally. I've done that as the council president. I've done that as the leader of the West Broadway Business Association. I've got a strong commitment to ensuring that we buy locally. And I want to work with the community to ensure that we have policies that work and that promote urban gardening, urban farming, and really put Minneapolis on the front and center as a leader in this country. My vision is that by 2017, we're going to have a vibrant, well-established urban farming community that's an integral part of the economy of Minneapolis. I want to lead that. I want to be part of it.
Thank you. Mark Andrew.
Thank you very much. Thank you also for being here. Thank you for your deep involvement in this critical issue for the future of our city. I'm Mark Andrew. I'm running for mayor. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about me, where I'm coming from, and why this is a big deal to me. I started out in politics very young. I was the first president of MPIRG at the University of Minnesota, was a community organizer, was chair of Earth Week, and later worked in my 20s at the Minnesota Senate on the Senate Ag Committee, developing agricultural and environmental policy. I was elected to the county board and assumed the role of the leading local environmentalist on the county board. I've worked with a lot of people. I'm so fortunate because you don't do great programs by yourself. You do them as part of a collaboration. But I collaborated with people. I was the chief author of the recycling program. I introduced single sort 19 years ago at the county board and were unable to push it through the city at that moment in time. But I also was the chief author of the Midtown Greenway. Worked on the Midtown Greenway for hundreds and hundreds of hours to get that project done. Was the chair of the Light Rail Transit Authority that voted the day we voted to build the Hiawatha Corridor. And as part of the Midtown Greenway, I was very fortunate to work with Tim Springer and the Midtown Greenway Coalition, and was the chief author of the Sioux Line Community Garden Resolution that granted an easement on that county-owned property so we could facilitate the creation of that extremely successful project. I think the issue of urban gardening and urban farming is integral to my vision to make Minneapolis the greenest city in America. The policies that we need to pursue are going to come from the mayor's office in the form of budget proposals and proposals coming out of the mayor's office to expand our availability and our inventory in urban farming. We'll work and expand the relationship that we have with the Homegrown Food Council, and I will blow out the large program that we drafted as my company. I have a green marketing company called Greenmark, and Greenmark wrote the local green purchasing policy for the city of Minneapolis a few years ago. So we will build that program out. We will amplify that program. And then we're going to work on programs around achieving greater access to land, public-private partnerships, acquiring land from the county. I'm very involved in collaborating. The county and the Minneapolis Park Board are the two most critical agencies to work with in the government sector to provide greater opportunities for land. And I have a really big vision for urban farming. The first thing we're going to do is continue the work that I started last month to get a permanent location for the Midtown Farmers Market. We will accomplish that. We are working with the decision makers now. I want to take the downtown farmers market and expand the downtown farmers market into a permanent year-round indoor-outdoor facility and collect it through urban development into closer to the downtown so we get closer to the markets.
Thank you very much.
And the citywide compost program.
Stephanie Woodruff.
Great. Thank you. I'm Stephanie Woodruff, and I'm running to put people over politics. I'm a lesbian, I'm a small business owner, and I have about 30 years of experience, and I've never run for office before. I'm a Democrat, but I'm proud to say that I'm also endorsed by the Independence Party because we share the same passion to put people over politics. I also serve as Mayor Ryback's appointee. I serve as the vice chair to the audit committee. That's a volunteer, non-paid position, and I proudly have served that for the last 4 years in my second term. Now, a little bit about me. I grew up on a farm. I grew up on a farm in Iowa, on 150 acres in small town Iowa. I've been farming and been involved with agriculture practically my entire life. After graduating, I got my first job, and I started my career at Cargill Incorporated, and I was with Cargill for 12 years, traveled the world for 12 years, and headed up the food sector internal audit function, and probably visited every grain elevator in small town America that you can imagine, and also all over the world. So agriculture and urban farming, food, access to food is a big part of, I mean, we were dirt poor growing up, but actually we ate very well, as you can tell. I mean, look at me, I look like I eat pretty well. So it's something that's very near and dear to me in terms of, making sure that we're doing the right thing in terms of having access and the proper access so that people, the challenges that we're faced, two main challenges in Minneapolis, the achievement gap and the rising poverty, okay? My idea to make Minneapolis the smartest city in America, I'm running on 3 areas: to make sure that we have sustainable growth, to make sure that Minneapolis becomes the smartest city in America, and to make sure that we do it in a very open and transparent way. Now, my idea to make sure that Minneapolis becomes the smartest city in America is to implement my idea of learning labs, and that is to leverage our existing park buildings to implement programs and to make sure that no child goes left untableted. Now, with those learning labs, we should be encouraging and educating our children about urban farming, about canning. I mean, all of these park buildings have kitchens. We should be, actively, proactively pushing that in the schools, and then our, existing capital projects that we already have. It doesn't cost a lot of money. I'm all for ensuring that we ease up the regulations to make sure that we are leveraging. We have so many vacant lots in the city, particularly on the north side and then on the south side, where we have our poorest neighborhoods. We have 1 in 4 living in poverty, and actually Ward 5, 91% of the residents on the north side fall within the federal poverty guidelines. So just think about the 1,000 vacant lots. If we can leverage those, we create urban farms, access to food where they don't have transportation. We can educate them, lift everybody up, solve this problem, and work together. We've got to get back to the basics and start putting people first, and that's why I'm running for mayor.
Thank you. Betsy Hodges?
A lot of times when people talk about the local food movement or urban agriculture, people start from one of 3 places. They either don't know and don't care. They think it's interesting in some sort of hobby or a boutique thing or something on the fringe, or they like to go to the farmer's market once in a while, and isn't that nice? Or there's a vision for its significance. Knowing that it's about more than just food, knowing that it's about more than just something nice to do on the weekend. Those are the folks who are all in, and I am all in on local food and urban agriculture. I know that it's about our livability. I know that it's about our food security. I know that it is about our economy increasingly moving forward, and I know that it's one of the ways we have to build community across the city. I know it's about our health. I am all in, which means it's going to have an impact on how I operate as mayor. It has an impact on what policies I think we need to moving forward, and it has an impact on how much I'm willing to fight in the places where it's going to be kind of tough to get things done, because a lot of this, the devil is in the details. The devil is in the details. I'll take a minute to give some of my cred or my bona fides or whatever people call them. I have been a continuous member of a co-op for the last 24 years, my entire adult life, and am a regular user and goer. For those of you, I've had CSAs on and off for many, many years, and for many of you who know the A to Z cookbook, the seasonal cookbook that started in Madison, my original copy is in a binder because it started from the CSA I was a member of in Madison many years ago. And my mother just sold her organic fertilizer company this past year. It was her 3rd career. She's 78 years old. Some of you might have talked to her on the phone. She's doing a lot of phoning for the campaign. This is where I come from. This is where I come from. It's been conversation in my house and in my life, my entire adult life. What will I do as mayor? Certainly I will support the council. Certainly I will support, I've been a longtime supporter of our health department and all the local food work we've been doing as a way of managing some of our disparities. Food is one of the disparities we have in the city. But I will also expand on our vision of what the local food movement means in the city of Minneapolis. That it's not just about what happens inside Minneapolis, what's happening in the exurbs, what's happening in greenfield development. It matters to the region and the state what's happening in Minneapolis, but what's happening in the region and the state matters to us as well in our local food movement. I'll relate to the community. You tell us what's not working. We get things done. That's going to be my job as mayor. It's our job as the city to get things done. There won't be mandates coming from Betsy Hodges' mayor's office. It will be a community work together. I will be there working with you, knowing what needs to move forward. I worked on procurement at City Hall when we were choosing a vendor inside the building. The biggest food issue we have is at our convention center, and so our procurement policies there need to be worked on and move forward. And land access. We need to start with the parcels that we've already identified. We get to start with.
Thank you very much.
And we get to do more. I'll say more later.
Cam Winton.
Good evening. I'm Cam Winton. I am fiscally responsible, socially inclusive, and offering fresh eyes in City Hall. Usually, I get to say that I'm the one candidate on the stage who does not have a background as an elected or an appointed official. Troy, it's nice to be here with you because your hat is awesome. Second time I've said it. And Troy and I sit before you as the only two candidates not coming from a background as an elected or an appointed official. If you're looking for the person with the most government experience, I'm not your guy. But if you're looking for somebody who's coming in with fresh eyes and willing to call it like I see it, I ask for you to hear me out and consider voting for me. So let me cover a few things. First, a little bit about who I am. I wasn't born here. I got to Minneapolis as soon as I could. I was born in Philadelphia, and I grew up in a town called Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. There's a co-op there. My family always joked, as did most people in town, that it was your place for low quantities and high prices. But patronizing the co-op was just part of being a Swarthmorean, growing up in that town. And so forever, shopping at the co-op has been part of life in that town and part of what I did. So along the way, I met a Minnesotan. I married a Minnesotan, and you know how that story ends. If you marry a Minnesotan, well, here you are. And Emily and I have lived in Minneapolis for 7 years now. We live in the Fulton neighborhood. We have 2 little kids. And I'm in the wind energy business. My colleagues and I built a company that maintains wind energy turbines. We have 120 employees. Last year we did business in 33 states and 4 countries. And I'm proud of the fact that last year we sold our company. And when I say we, I mean all of us. Every single one of the 120 employees had a share in the company. And we sold ourselves to Duke Energy, biggest utility in the country. Every single employee kept his or her job and got a check for their chunk of the company. I mention all that because to me it's private enterprise at its best, where everybody who contributes shares in the benefits. And that's the story I want to see repeated again and again in Minneapolis. Another piece of my wind energy experience worth sharing is that by virtue of the work I've done with that company, I've spent a lot of time in rural Minnesota and rural South Dakota and rural Iowa over the past 4 years. I have logged more miles on my trusty Prius than the average bear. And it's kind of funny, quick side note, when a grown man drives into a town in rural America in a Prius, he might as well have driven in a spaceship. It looks pretty crazy. But I've gotten to talk to people about their land and what it means to them, whether it's big ag or small ag. That's the background. Those are the eyes I'm bringing. So let me talk a little bit about what I would do as mayor. First and foremost, the mayor has a megaphone, a powerful one. And like everybody else on this stage, I would use that megaphone to draw attention to these important issues that we're talking about here tonight. That when we grow food in our backyards and in community gardens, that provides food security. It reduces environmental impacts. And it's good in many different ways. Regarding changes in law to make it easier to grow food in our city, I want to see fewer restrictions on the type and kind and weights of trucks that are allowed to bring in inputs and take away finished goods. I want to make sure I'm working with the fire department so that everybody who wants to grow food in our city can do so. I want to partner with the private sector. If you don't know the story of Lifetime Foundation and how it's supporting the work of Mr. Weber, it's worth looking into, and that's the kind of thing I do as mayor.
Thank you very much. Troy Benjagurtis.
Hi, my name's Troy Benjagurtis, and I was a farmer before it was cool, and I didn't think it was cool either, so I left. And I went to Iowa State University, and I was in a town called Ames, Iowa, which had a municipal utility for about 15 years. But when I was back on that farm, my dad grows corn and soybeans. He owns the farmland. And now I'm trying to figure out how am I going to own farmland, which is apparently why I'm running for mayor, so I can make connections. Because what I want to do is I want to be in the wind energy business. I want to have a wind farm on the family farm, and I want to be able to sell that energy to the people in Minneapolis. But back to growing up, I remember we'd grow corn and soybeans, and we'd haul it to the farmers' cooperative elevator, which was owned by us, the farmers. And it would go somewhere. And I had no idea where it went. And it would come back in boxes of cornflakes. And I'd sell a bushel of corn for $4. And then I'd be able to go buy a box of cornflakes for $4. But there were about 50 boxes of cornflakes in that bushel of corn. And then I ran into the local food movement, and I got really excited because people are starting to know where their food comes from. But I see something missing is, like my dad, who owns his farmland. I don't see any urban farmers who own their farmland. And what I see is a beautiful urban market garden with a for sale sign. And we have to do something about this. And one of the other reasons I'm running for mayor is it's really critical that we know where our food comes from. It's also really critical we know where our energy comes from. What is on the other end of those light bulbs? What are the environmental impacts of the generation source? I can tell you what the environmental impacts of the wind farms are. I like wind farms. I go home not home, home is here, where I have solar panels on my roof. But when I go back to the farm, I see a 300 megawatt wind farm, but it's still not owned by the farmers. It's owned by somebody else. It's owned by capital that came in from somewhere else in the world. So policies, I guess I'll try to get to that. I want to promote urban farm ownership by the people who touch the soil. The only way I can imagine that to possibly do that is to promote a local currency so that you can go work on a local urban farm for a couple hours, and you get a couple hours worth of currency. And then you can go to a restaurant, and you can spend your hours buying food. And then the restaurant can spend those hours buying the produce back from the farmer. We get to land access, and I think that answered the buy local part, but we get to land access. How do we get urban farm homesteading, where we take empty city lots and allow people who are growing food to own the land? And it's very critical that the people who touch the soil are the ones that own the land. If you think we should have a voice and a choice in where we get our food and energy from so we can get it, so we have the choice to get it from local farmers, then please vote for me in your top 3.
Thank you very much. Do you want to send the microphone down to this end, and maybe we can sort of split, and the first table can have one mic and the other table can work with the other mic?
Moderator?
Excuse me?
I'm Mayoral Anderson. I'm a candidate.
I'm sorry. You're not going to be participating tonight, but I think you need to talk to one of the organizers, and you'll be able to meet with some of the folks after the forum. Do you want to chat with Russ Henry for a minute, and you'll have a chance after the forum to meet with people. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with our first question that's come from the audience, and Bob Fine will be addressing it, and the response is a 1-minute response. Urban agriculture mostly seems to be geared toward property owners. How would you include renters regarding more push toward landlords allowing composting, rooftop gardens, beehives, chickens, etc.?
That's the end of the question. Okay.
That's the end of the question.
Well, for one thing, I think that one of the things we can do is try and find public spaces, for one, that renters can use. Obviously, people or homeowners should have yards, although today, the way they're building houses, there's almost no yards. And I think that what we need to do is provide something that gives an incentive to landlords to allow tenants to be able to use the backyards and to use the yards that they do have. The problem is that we have so many apartment buildings that don't have it. So that means we really, for the most part, we got to look into getting land that can be used for community gardens. We've had a lot with the park board. The park board has had a policy in the past of limiting the amount of gardening that's done, but I think that we need to have a discussion with that, and also about trying to get empty lots that the city may own and turn them into community gardens.
Thank you. Dan Cohen?
Let me try to be quite specific. We have 1847 empty lots here. The city should have compiled a list, make it available to everyone, manage it in such a fashion so that people can use these lots for agricultural purposes. My whole theme of my campaign is jobs. You people represent jobs, a great number of jobs and growth of our economy. So anything we can do to make it easier in terms of cutting regulations, having these lots as available as possible to you and known to you is a responsibility of the city and the mayor's office. I'd like to say one other thing. We talked about the Midtown Market a minute ago. I attended Gary Schiff's breakfast last month and pledged my support to helping to fund the Midtown Market, doing whatever is possible. I will renew that pledge to you here tonight. I believe that's a responsibility of the city. Again, it's going to grow jobs and it's going to grow the economy in the city, so I'm for it.
Jackie Cherry Holmes?
Well, clearly gardening or urban farming should not be the purview of property owners. It should be the purview of everybody who wants to do it, because it's good for our economy, it builds entrepreneurship, and it provides food, and it's a good tool for community organizing. We need to get up off those lots that the city has. We need to get rid of the regulations and make those lots available for gardening. We also need to find some larger tracts of land. My sister this summer was part of a garden in Richfield, where she had quite a large space in the Richfield garden. It's a community garden. You buy a little space and then you get to garden. And she had a fabulous garden there. We have opportunities like that in Minneapolis with land that is sitting there under or unutilized. We need to free up that land and make it available to folks for gardening.
Thank you. Mark Andrew?
I completely agree with what Jackie is saying, and would add that a good model to do this is to look what we are trying to do. My campaign and my proposal that's out there for community solar. I want to do community solar with a goal of a project in all 81 major neighborhoods of our city. And we can do the same thing with urban farming. I made a commitment early in my campaign to go big or go home. Let's have a big vision. Let's carry out a big vision with a dramatic expansion in our opportunities for urban farming. For renters, for owners, community space is obviously critical. So is carving out a more meaningful relationship with our schools. We have great opportunities to do various kinds of partnership with schools. We're doing some of those now. We need to do a lot more.
Thank you. Stephanie Woodruff?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the comments here. I actually rent at Franklin Lofts, and we actually have a little area that just kind of morphed over the years. It used to be the flower garden, but there's, vegetables and so forth. And, we need to encourage developers, particularly apartment complexes that sit right next to our public parks, to somehow incentivize or implement rooftop gardens. And with Mark Andrew on this, I'm a big proponent of solar gardens, particularly with all of the empty lots. I think there's a lot that we can do to incorporate solar gardens and urban farming with all of the vacant lots, but particularly around large apartment complexes. The easier that we can make it where it's, it's right next to it, even better, because a lot of, I don't want to create a transit issue in terms of getting people there, because it makes it less attractive. But actually, a friend of mine lives on 33rd and Columbus, and he goes, yeah, I'm part of the Columbus Community Garden. It's been there forever. So I think over time, these units just kind of pop up.
Thank you. Betsy Hodges.
So I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who wants to be a farmer. I mean, the question was specifically about agriculture and is a renter, and I have been a renter here in the city, and I'm thinking there's two paths. The first would be to find land elsewhere, and that is where the city can be helpful. We already have a list of parcels that could be available for community gardens. We have to make sure those are available for urban agriculture, have those projects be successful, and then look to the longer view of making our other that are considered developable parcels available as well, because the highest and best use is sometimes going to be a community garden or a farm. But I also think, okay, what if you wanted to do it on site? And there has to be options there that you work out with your landlord, but I'm guessing there are regulations at the city that would make it really tough. We found that all the way along. I know that when we wanted to do some beekeeping, we had to change an ordinance to allow you to do it above a certain height at the city in one of our own buildings. And so I am guessing that's going to be one of the things moving forward too, are those city regulations.
Thank you. Cam Winton?
So this is an example of how I think it's fair to say everybody on the stage shares the goal of having land used at its highest and best purpose. But I want to draw a clear contrast between myself and what you've heard so far. There is no magic pot of money. The well is dry in the city. And so with great respect to my fellow candidates, I note, and I hope more importantly that you all note, throughout the course of the evening when you hear people saying we'll create incentives or we will find resources, usually that means the candidate is telling you that the candidate as mayor would spend money. There's no money left. There's no money left. We spent the money on a Viking stadium. Some folks want to spend the money on a $54 million per mile streetcar line. And to those who understandably would say, well, we spent so much money on the Viking Stadium, can't we find a little more? Unfortunately, the math doesn't work like that. The money's gone. It's on the Viking Stadium. So please be wary when you hear people proposing incentives. What I do support...
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
It's only a minute. I'm afraid it goes quickly. Troy Ben-Jagurtis.
Okay, if there's anything that you're going to remember from tonight, remember garden spots, not parking spots. The first thing I'd do is I'd go change the requirements for parking so that if a developer wants to build a high-rise, they can either put in parking spots or they can put in garden spots. And they might even be able to put in garden spots in a greenhouse on the roof. If I go a little farther than that, I'll draw another contrast. Everyone's talking about, oh, we need to help the people who don't own land. Why can't we make everyone own their garden spot? How do we make it so anybody that wants to garden can own a garden spot, and then they can pay their property taxes on their garden spot with vegetables?
Thank you. Okay, we're going to our next question. If you want to pass the mic down to Bob Fine. Do you support a growth model? If you do, even smart growth, it will reduce our space to grow food. Which will you push for, development or food? You can't have both.
When I think of development, I really think of our growth in what goes on downtown and lots that are already taken up for other commercial use. If we're going to develop, we develop on current commercial uses. I want to see more green space. There's been a lot going on in the area I live in the southwest area of the city, with people trying to buy up lots and building houses, and there's like no green space anymore. And I think that's really unfortunate. So I think we need to look at more green space. Obviously, as a practical matter, within zoning laws, we don't have control over what someone who owns their property wants to do with it. But I definitely feel we have to get a lot more green space. It's a real important issue to me.
Thank you. Dan Cohen?
Well, here's where the rubber meets the road. Is it the developer who says you are committed as a city to build to the highest and best use? Or is it the community which says we need jobs, we need community, we need health, we need cooperation, we need environment? Where do your values lie? Well, my values lie with the latter. I think our first obligation is to build a community. And so far as developers are concerned, development is just fine. But we can do this with developers. We can say to these developers, and this is why this is a learning experience for me, because I didn't know about this. We can say to these developers, you have an obligation to the community, not just to yourselves, not just to your owners, to the community, to put in a garden here, to provide green space for growing, to do the sorts of things that help build a community as well as what helped build a building for you. And we can do that. That's what a city can do. We can adopt those values, and I think it's important to do that.
Thank you. Jackie Cherry Holmes?
I don't live in an either-or world. I live in a both-and world. I am always trying to figure out how things are both-and. I think that we need to have growth and development in the city, but I think it needs to be done carefully in a planful way, and we're currently not approaching it that way. I want to say that I liked a couple of Troy's ideas. We do give benefits. We do give bonuses to developers for doing certain things. We give bonuses for public art and that sort of thing. Why not give bonuses for someone who has a garden farming space on the roof? Why not give bonuses for beekeeping space? We can look at those sorts of things, and I think we should. But I also think we need to free up the lots in our city. I do not believe, I live in North Minneapolis, we got a ton of vacant lots, I've lived with them for a long time. When I was on the council, I was one of the leaders in freeing up those lots so people could use them for gardening, so people could use them for urban agriculture. We need to do that again. I don't believe that a house on every single lot is absolutely necessary. I think the benefits of community that come with urban agriculture can be just as important.
Thank you very much. Mark Andrew.
I also agree that the question was flawed. It's not an easy solution, but it's also not either and or. I'm a huge supporter of smart growth strategies, but I'm also a supporter of innovation and being creative in our developments. The Minneapolis Park Board had legislation at the state capitol last year that would require a certain investment from certain kinds of developers to accomplish more green space in our city. We can do similar kinds of strategies with developers. The solution is going to be in public-private partnerships, freeing up the land. We've got tax forfeited land at the county. We've got available land potentially at the Park Board. We have private sector land. We will require developers to integrate things like urban farming into their development plans because that is the highest and best use. That's what we have over everybody else. Smart development that includes urban farming is a higher and best use and will increase property values.
Thank you. Stephanie Woodruff?
Yes, and I agree with that. I mean, why not have both? I mean, we need to encourage development. You look at all these luxury properties, I mean, they're almost like looking at renting a resort. They've got dog tracks, they've got pools, they've got gyms. Why not have a little area for farming? I mean, it's not impossible. Stick it on the roof. My whole idea downtown is to develop the riverfront. We need to turn the river and make our river our front door instead of our back door. Huge opportunities on the north side of the riverfront to develop parks, farms, community, particularly because it's on the north side. It lifts up our poorest neighborhoods, right? I mean, urban farming it's a win-win if we play it right with developers, I would even doubt that we probably even need to give incentives. I mean, it's just a smart thing to do. When you look at rentals these days, they have all these amenities. It's incredible because they have to be competitive. Why not encourage that?
Thank you. Betsy Hodges.
I do have a growth and development vision for the city of Minneapolis, and part of that vision for the growth and development of Minneapolis is local food, is our food. And so anything that we put together has to account for the fact that we are going to need space for people to grow food. And that we're, of course, going to need ways for people to be able to sell that food and share that food and preserve that food, and that's part of the overall vision of what we're doing moving forward. My vision is about transit and transportation, especially rail. It drives development where you want it, in those transportation corridors, in those commercial corridors. People don't generally object to a density of people. They object to the density of cars. And if we are building a development future that doesn't require so many cars, and it's on those transitways, there is space in other parts of the city, just as there is now. And so part of the growth and development of the city allows for space for that green space. We will talk a lot about land access. That's one of the core questions. But yes, it's part of our future.
Thank you. Cam Winton?
There are so many things that are wonderful about our city, and so many reasons why my wife and I put our roots down here to raise our family and build our lives here. But I'm running to bring fresh eyes to the challenges we face, and the stakes are high, so let me be candid about those challenges. 2 of them anyway. There's a crushing property tax burden in our city. It's crushing. So many thousands of people that I've met in the course of my campaign don't know whether they'll be able to keep affording the property taxes. And secondly, we have an incredibly low apartment vacancy rate. It's about 3%. What that means is people can't find affordable housing. 7,000 children tonight in our city, 7,000 children will be in unstable housing situations. It's morally unacceptable. So I absolutely support development of apartment buildings. When we have more people living in those buildings, it spreads out the property tax burden. And if that means that sometimes we're going to have to give up a farming lot to build an apartment building on it, that's the consequence of living in a city where we have a property tax burden that's crushing.
Thank you. Troy?
Oh, where do I start with this? So how are you measuring development? Are you measuring it in US dollars, which are determined and valued and created by a dysfunctional political system? Or are you measuring development in pounds of food produced in the city limits? If you take the second option, there is no conflict. If you make pounds of local food the local currency and pay your taxes with your vegetables, there's no conflict here.
Thank you. Okay, our next question. The Minneapolis Park Board is the largest landowner in the city. How will you as mayor work with the Park Board to create models for urban food forests and urban agriculture on parkland, starting with low-income communities who have limited access to fresh food? Bob Fine?
I didn't hear the last part with the
Well,
urban.
it's how will you create models for urban food forests and urban agriculture on parkland, starting with low-income communities?
Well, I have a long background with the park board, but I can't say that as mayor I'm going to be able to come in and tell an independent park board that they're going to use a certain amount of land for urban farming. But I do find it that I think it's the kind of thing that, depending on the parks and the situation, that the park board can look at it as an educational thing, where you're getting especially kids who are interested in farming much earlier. You know, one of the problems is the demands we have for a lot of our parkland and the fact that a lot of people don't want to lose any of that parkland. And I would always weigh that interest with the idea of the education arm of trying to educate people on farming. And I would have the park board, because they have been reviewing this for some time, to come up with that kind of a plan and see what could be available to do that.
Thank you. Dan Cohen?
Well, Bob Fine is our park board guy up here, and I'm going to twist his arm real hard, so we'll get this stuff. This is a sort of thing that is just ready-made, ideal for city park board cooperation. City can do things to make it happen in terms of financing and providing expertise. Park board can make it happen in terms of providing land and expertise. It's just made to order for a cooperative deal. And as mayor, I would make sure that it happened.
Thank you. Jackie Cherryholmes?
This is an example of where we really need to have collaboration and cooperation, and this model actually exists today. In North Minneapolis, in Theodore Wirth Park, there is the J.D. Rivers Garden. It's one of the most fabulous gardens around, and it's gardened by young people in the community, and it's a partnership of not just the city and the park board, but it's also the University of Minnesota 4-H program. So it's a really big collaboration. That's what I like doing. I like pulling people together. I like connecting the dots and making it all all work. And that's what we can do. And I think the J.D. Rivers Garden is a perfect example. There's more land there. As Stephanie referenced earlier, there's land along the riverfront that the park board owns. That same collaboration can come into place where we're teaching young people and we're working with community people to do urban agriculture on our park land. I think that that's something we just have to set our mind to doing, say we're going to do it, connect the dots, and get it done. That's what I'm really good at doing.
Thank you. Mark Andrew?
And being able to do this on a significant scale is enhanced when we do collaborate and when we use our imaginations and come up with using a strategy, urban farms, to simultaneously attack multiple problems. Example, all of the candidates talk about the achievement gap, and everybody up here agrees that one of the solutions is better cooperation and collaboration with after-school activities. Working with the Minneapolis Park Board and the school district and the city, we could actually have an urban farming program that addresses several problems simultaneously. The demand for clean, healthy food, building our economy from the grassroots up, but also providing imaginative learning opportunities for our kids, doing community building and equity building in communities where we need it most. These are the kinds of collaborations that true urban entrepreneurship can accomplish.
Thank you. Stephanie Woodruff?
Great. Yeah, this is a no-brainer. I've already talked about this in terms of there's two precious assets we have in the city, our park system and our river, and we need to leverage both of them. I've already talked about earlier about my idea to leverage our existing Capitol buildings in the park system to implement learning labs, early childhood centers, to get these kids off of the street, supplement the school system, whether it's urban agriculture, farming, whatever type of program, leveraging our Wi-Fi, right? There's so much information over the cloud that we can be leveraging to teach our kids whatever they want to learn to keep them engaged, have a closer sense of community, a better sense of family, get them off of the streets, teach them something, pull them out of poverty, and fix this achievement gap. We need to leverage. And like I said, this should be a no-brainer in terms of working with the park board on this issue.
Thank you. Betsy Hodges?
Well, first, this is a great idea. And second, we're all going to have to work together, me as mayor and the community, to work with the park board. They are an independent park board to make some of these ideas real. And I was fortunate enough 3 weeks ago, I don't know how long ago it was, to be on part of the Homegrown Minneapolis local food tour. And when I was there, I met a man who has done this with park systems, created incredible food forests, and you can really make a marquee park institution in a city because people love it. People love it. People love going to these places that are so beautiful and so functional and so different and so fun. And you don't have to do one big one. You could do parts of different parks. I mean, I don't need to spell out the plan here. But yes, this is something I support. It's something that I would support as mayor. But it's something that we would have to do together as a community to work with our park board to help make it happen.
Thank you. Cam Winton?
So far, I do recognize that you've been hearing a lot of no from me. No, there's no money left in the well. And that's a true statement. I stand by it. Or no, we can't sacrifice great apartment land for farmland because we need more apartments desperately and morally in our city. But here's a great example of yes. When the city government partners with the park board, and as Councilmember Hodges noted, it's a separate park board, so it'd be a real partnership. There's beautiful land. And nobody's going to put an apartment building on any parkland. So let's use that land. Let's have the city partner with the park board and use that land to teach our children about urban agriculture, to have models of how we can grow.
An amount of me being obnoxious that it's better to ask, when you're dealing with a bureaucracy, it's better to ask forgiveness and to ask permission. So I'd go find a community that wants to do it and go plant something. And the mayor is responsible for enforcing the laws.
Thank you. Okay, this is going to be our final question because we're about almost at 8:20. As mayor, describe the leadership that you will bring to make this community vision of urban agriculture a reality. We'll start with Barb Fine.
Well, I really believe that this is an area where we need to talk to the community and find out exactly what they want. I mean, I know what I want on a personal basis, but and I've seen a lot of what people in this area want, but I think it's the kind of thing that you sit down, you plan, you decide exactly where we want to go. Is it what the city can do in terms of providing, number one, areas for people to farm, regulations, whether you ease up on the regulations, decide what exactly you need to do, and also about encouraging, people to actually get into this movement, because there's a lot of people who do it, but there's a lot of people who don't, and I think it's really important to demonstrate. And the example I give is I've been coaching over 1,000 kids. I bring the kids I coach now and I let them see my chickens and what I'm growing in my backyard, so you got to expose them.
Thank you. Dan Cohen.
Well, I think you've got terrific leadership here. And I think that's the key to arrangement, working with the city, working with the mayor of the city, to work out the details of exactly what you need to fulfill your mission. Obviously, you want to cut the regs as much as possible. They're unnecessary, and in some cases, my understanding is they're in violation of the state constitution. It's absurd to have that sort of thing hanging over your head. We've got to get rules for composting, which permit a wider use of it, because it's a way to make nutrients go to good use and not thrown away and burned up. We've got to make sure that land use is provided in a fashion that promotes the kinds of goals we want to achieve here. That's jobs, that's health, that's environment, that's community. All these sorts of things are terribly important to our city, and it's a leadership, urban farming, cooperative, joint effort to get it accomplished, and I'd be proud to be part of it.
Thank you. Jackie Cherryholmes.
Well, the key word in the question is leadership. And leadership is not about any one of us telling you what we're going to do. Leadership is about listening. Leadership is about sitting with people, listening, learning, and then bringing it all together. I want to work with the Urban Farmers Collaborative. I want to work with the Food Council, all of you in the room, and those other voices that aren't in the room. We've got a lot of community agriculture projects going on in North Minneapolis. There's a lot of community efforts going on that all need to be at the table, and we need to all be working together, because I think together we can use urban agriculture to build entrepreneurship. It is indeed a way of creating jobs. We can use it as a way of building community, because I believe there is probably no more powerful way of bringing people together in our city than around digging in the ground together and sharing the beauty of growing things together. And it produces food. And we live in a city where we have people that live with food insecurity. We can't have that. This is a way of dealing with all of that. But the leadership is about listening and about developing a plan together.
Thank you very much. Mark Andrew.
Let's look at where we're at. We have a mayor who jumped all over this years ago, and I don't know if Megan is still here, but we've had incredible leadership. And the truth is, Minneapolis is ripe for a big leap forward on urban farming and a comprehensive food policy for our community. It can be course charting. We can become a national thought leader in this subject area. And the wonderful thing about it is that it integrates beautifully into the vision that I have for the city, greenest city in America, most sustainable city, integrating in with the kind of development in greening and transit and bottom-up decision-making that I've been talking about throughout my campaign. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us. We need to do this with some scale in order to make an impact. We need to go big to the extent that it's possible and responsible, and it's a great opportunity for us to take advantage of this moment now.
Thank you. Stephanie Woodruff.
Yes, my leadership style is very collaborative over the last 30 years and launching several companies. Very collaborative. I take a very proactive approach in terms of listening. And that's basically, the main reason why I jumped in the race. I jumped in late, and my whole platform is to put people first because I didn't feel comfortable that my opponents were actually putting people first over some of these projects that are going on. I have been this entire campaign talking about the neighborhoods, investing in our neighborhoods and putting our neighborhoods first. So my approach is a very bottom-up. That's how I run my companies in terms of listening and making sure that I am out into those neighborhoods, engaging those neighborhoods, but doing it in a very transparent way because transparency builds trust, and trust is the foundation for great teamwork. That's how I will run as mayor in terms of how the office will run. But my number one priority is putting people first, listening to the neighborhoods, and ensuring their needs are met.
Thank you. Betsy Hodges.
The leadership I will bring is first a vision for the city of Minneapolis that includes local food movement, that includes urban agriculture. Second is commitment and integrity to the work, being committed to it, and you know that what I've said here tonight is what I'm going to do as mayor. Third, the collaboration, knowing that it is a community effort, that this has been a grassroots movement, that you brought this to us, and I thank you for it. And continuing that collaboration is the only way this is going to succeed. 4, the details. The devil is in the details on some of these things. I have helped shepherd through many, many things through the city. Having the vision, for example, for organics recycling, starting that pilot project, now working on getting it citywide. That is something that I helped bring to and start at the city. Had the vision, the collaboration, the commitment, and now the devil is in the details. And finally, knowing that part of leadership is knowing how to follow people well. And I'm following your lead on this and will continue to do so.
Thank you. Cam Winton.
My approach to leadership is to make sure that everybody who's on the team has bought into the big vision. And in this particular case, I think that's pretty easy, that we all do share a vision of more local food production, of a greater awareness of the role that local food production plays in our society, in our economy, in our food security. And then once everybody's on board with that vision, I delegate responsibilities. I make sure there are great people on the team, and I say, this is your piece of it. Run with it. And I'm going to hold you accountable for the chunk of results. And then I make sure that person has the right incentives. I make sure that person and the rest of the people on the team who are all working for this vision have the information and the tools they need, and then I hold them to account. So let's take one example, this vacant lots, 1,837 vacant lots. I'm going to want weekly status updates on what we're doing as a city to shed vacant lots, to make sure that they are being used for their highest and best purpose. For these regulations that right now make it too difficult in too many cases to grow food locally in our neighborhoods, I want to know what's happening each and every week to cut them. That's the approach I'd bring.
Thank you. Troy Benjagurtis?
I think part of leadership is listening. So I can talk a lot, but I like to write on my blog. So go to mayortroy.com and talk to me. I want to listen to you. Write some comments. So I'm going to try to listen to people and provide ways that if I'm in the mayor's office, okay, hopefully I'm not actually in the mayor's office, I'm out at one of these urban farms or at one of the parks working in a garden. And you can come talk to me there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn the meeting back to Maggie for a brief farewell.
Let's give a round of applause to all the candidates. I know a few of you here tonight, and I am a fairly strongly opinionated person, and this is the first time in my voting life that I came tonight as an undecided voter. So as a voter, it was very, very helpful to hear all of your comments. So I want to thank you, and I also want to thank Polly Keppel from the League of Women Voters for moderating the debate. Thank you. My passion is food, health, and sustainability, and it also is my gig. I do that for a living, too. And I think we heard a lot from the candidates, as well as from your questions tonight, about your curiosity about where we're heading as a community together, what we want to see for our food system, what we want to see for our city in the context of being food self-sufficient, how producing food contributes to community vitality and our well-being as a city. And I want to put a couple of longer-term pieces out there. We've talked a lot about gardens and farms tonight. We didn't spend quite as much talking about what happens as that food ripens and goes off the vine. And so I want to speak to all of the candidates tonight and encourage you to think big, if you win, about the economic development and enterprise opportunities at the micro-enterprise level, as well as we look across the river to St. Paul. They've got some exciting stuff happening in terms of new, really interesting businesses. There's exciting plans and discussion on the north side of Minneapolis about what West Broadway is and can be. And so I think it's important not just to think about when we're out there with our hands in the dirt and working the land, whether it's in our backyards or in the parks or in community gardens or larger farms that we're working ourselves, but what we can do with that food, not just to get it to people, but also to support and enterprises that are here. So we're not just taking our food system back so we know where our food comes from so we can eat it, but also that we can make a living doing it. So I'd like to ask that. And then the other thing I'd like us to really start thinking about is beyond city limits and us as a metropolitan area and the role that the Minneapolis mayor can play in leading at the Met Council level for the preservation of farmland, not just inside our city limits, but all the way out to the peri-urban core, because they're growing our food too. And you can lead that effort. You're all committed to collaboration, and that's an excellent opportunity. So just wanted to plant a couple of seeds. As I understand it, there's another candidate who showed up. He may be out there. We have to be out the door by 9 o'clock and have things cleaned up because Sabathani closes at that point in time. But if the candidates are willing to hang around informally for a few moments afterward, if you'd like to approach them and ask questions, feel free to do so, and thank you so much for coming out tonight. Vote next week.